Welcome to another episode of Patroma Therapy. Here we are on episode 21, In the Beginning. We are looking at some creation stories and reading specifically from the Greek myths by Robert Graves. So we thank you for spending a little time with us. And I'd like to read this first myth, which starts off, in the beginning, the goddess of all things rose naked from chaos and found nothing substantial for her feet to rest upon, and therefore divided the sea from the sky, dancing lonely upon the waves. So how do you feel about this naked woman dancing?
It makes me feel both intimidated and excited. And intimidated. I mean, she rose naked from the anarchy, how cool is that? But then again, she was dancing, wasn't she? Not that I'm saying that women should not be passionate, but let's be real. Such women are very hard to control, hence intimidation.
Well, it's interesting.
Also surprised, because this is like the first time ever when I can logically explain what I feel real quick. Excited, intimidated, and surprised.
You were surprised. Well, it's interesting how there's so many naked women to attract our attention. For example, in the Judeo-Christian story of Adam and Eve in the garden, there's a garden and they're wandering around naked, and then Eve is naked and she's very naked, and then this woman is naked. So it seems like naked women, maybe like a sort of sub theme we're working on here.
You know what I think about why there are so many naked women in them olden stories? I think because it was all about power struggle, and based on the myth, the beginning of which you've just read, women had an upper hand at the time of the creation. So, if nakedness represented power, guess who ruled the world? I'm using past tense because obviously at some point they couldn't handle it. So, men took over. Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, so what is your approach?
Okay, well, nakedness represents original goodness. So we're originally born free and uninhibited. Like when you go to a nursery and you see new babies, they're not good or bad, they're just there. And then they come into the world, and we learn the rules of society, which teaches us shame about our body and how we have to work hard to make a lot of money, and we're just kind of driven. So I see this idea of the woman rising from the chaos is kind of like, what I do every day. Like I just wake up and it's like chaos. Like I've got to do things, I have to go places. There's lots of obstacles. I have to push my rock up the hill. It's like a very classic archetypal theme. And I'm not so worried about the goddesses of the past or who has the power. I just know I got a lot of stuff to get done today.
I wouldn't want to be considered misogynist, but this matriarchy thing still bugs me. Do you think Greek myths are real?
Well, we're reading them, aren't we? They've lasted through time, which makes them classics. So the classical stories, the myths, the heroes, the archetypes live through time because there's something that rings true to our heart or to our soul. So we understand the science of creation, like there's a sperm and an egg, and there's all this fallopian tubes and crazy stuff. I just remember when I first had to watch a sex education film, that was some scary stuff. I was pretty sure I never wanted to do that, because it was like a black and white film. The girls were in the gym watching it. The boys were in the library watching it. It was like some scary stuff. Did they have sex education in Russia?
Like where?
In the schools?
Not in my school, they didn't. Not that I know of. See, the problem is, nah. What do you think of the divine feminine, of the matriarchy? When there were no other gods, but just the goddess of all things, Eurynomy. Fatherhood was not honored, conception being attributed to the wind.
In Greece they were already the Olympians. That was already patriarchal. But in my
Not yet.
this escúchame. Okay, so my, the Minoans and the Mycenaeans are on the islands, and then those they had the goddess of like, all the like 10 breasts, like the mother gods, and then those gods were displaced, and the gods of Greece are the Olympians. Those are like Zeus and Poseidon and all the dudes doing all their, male stuff and like coming down and messing with women. So when we're talking about the Greek gods, we're talking about the Olympians. But this mother god business has to do with the islands and with earlier cultures. Now, the interesting thing about this first goddess that we're talking about today is that she got pregnant, and I think there was like a big serpent there.
You're right, there was a serpent there, but Eurynomy got impregnated by the wind.
Well, yeah, the wind is called Boreas, like the Aurea Borealis, and she has she has this pregnancy, and then she changed forms. She shape shifted into a dove and hovered on the water, and then she laid an egg. So she was some kind of magical woman who laid an egg, and then the egg hatched, and she had these children, and the children were the sun, the moon, the planets, the stars, the earth, the mountains, the rivers, trees, herbs, and all living creatures. So this story that we're looking at today is about how creation comes from this egg that was laid by a woman, and some like magical wind impregnated her.
Also, the egg got hatched because the serpent coiled 7 times about this egg until it hatched. But you know what Eurynomy done to this serpent later? She bruised his head with her heel, kicked out his teeth, and banished him to the dark caves below the earth. How is that fair?
Well, these are things women have to do when they're angry. Women have to express their anger, and kicking. What is it that she did? She did what? What did she do?
She killed him.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's angry. Women get angry. They got to do something. Some women go on shopping sprees. Some women, drink too much. Some women, shoot guns.
I wonder if there is still somebody who would want to go back in time when women ruled the world.
Okay, I still think that women do rule. I think that in spite of some restrictions on women's ability to get into law school or medical school or professional school, in spite of the glass ceiling, women still are very courageous and powerful, and they just move ahead. And also there's a saying that behind every great man is a great woman. And now that woman might be his wife, might be his secretary, might be his mistress. So I think women have a dark power over men.
So you're okay with women being the dominant sex and men her frightened victim, are you?
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is we talk in modern times about power and who has power and who has money, and what is desirable in a mate or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or what we want our children to grow up. I mean, some of us have daughters, some of us have sons, some of us have twins. I mean, we want power, we want ability to operate in the world, and I think women are actually pretty powerful. I mean, women can get men to do all kinds of stuff. I mean, I can get men to buy beers for me. I mean, it's pretty amazing to get a man to buy a beer for me. That I feel like I have power in Dallas.
It's all Greek to me. I think at this point I've pretty much given up trying to understand if the ancient society were matriarchal just within the family, or maybe it was the other way around.
Well, no. There are spheres of power. So traditionally, men have ruled or operated in the world, and women have operated in the home. Or like back in caveman times, cave person times,
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I wish I could be a caveman in a cave. I wish I could be one of them Pelagians. Were they even cavemen? I've tried to Google it, but
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm not too into Google. I just like I'm like I like Robert Graves who did the editing and the translations on this, and he was a professor of English literature in the University of Cairo, and he wrote all kinds of poetry, and he wrote nonfiction books, The White Goddess, The Nazarene Gospel Restored. He re-examined primitive Christianity. He lived in Spain. I mean, this guy was an amazing guy. He won the National Poetry Award in 1960. So he was very busy with the story of myth and with how the gods and goddesses operated back then. And I think that it's very, very timely today. So there's lots of myths in our lives. We have, you know, just a lot of different ones.
yeah, lots of myths. Eurynome in the form of a dove upon the waves laid the cosmic egg. Isn't it interesting how the dove was singled out to represent the greater good in the world mythology?
Well, yeah, the Judeo-Christian story, we have God the Father who sends a portion of himself to the world as Jesus. And then there's the story of Jesus walking around the earth and doing his thing and then dying and then, you know, being drawn up to the Father again, then redistributed in the world as the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost or the Holy Dove that breathes into the world. So this idea of the dove descending is a very ubiquitous symbol in many different myths. Do you know what the word ubiquitous means?
You don't have to get sabbatical on me. Okay, I don't know.
It means penetrating everywhere. It's like it's everywhere. Like, you know,
Omnipotent.
yeah, yes, it's like everywhere, like showing up everywhere, ubiquitous. Like COVID is kind of ubiquitous right now.
Let's talk about the caveman a little bit longer. The idea of the first man intrigues me.
Well, see, I mean, there's a lot of different stories of the first man. For example, I think it's the Mayans. They have the first man came from corn, was like a corn that sprung up from the earth. So the idea that we spring from the earth, that we're formed from the earth, I think there's this story we discussed earlier about, you know, uh, how God took soil or earth and formed it into a man and then breathed life into it. So the breath of life, breath is also, an important story that or aspect of all this creation. There is matter, earth, soil, mud, and then there's the breath of life, and that is the spirit being infused into the body. So we're not only matter or animal or body, but we're also spirit and life and light. And that's part of the challenge of being human, is that we're kind of half and half. We're creatures of this world and we're also creatures of another world.
And I think that's why we should cherish the qualities that make us human.
I think so too. And on that peaceful note, let's wrap it up. Adios.